Hello, welcome to another episode, and tonight we're going to talk about EHR, electronic medical records or electronic healthcare records, and how could this question come during the interview. So, a lot of you are already doing observerships, doing some work with clinicians, and you're using electronic medical records right now. You're seeing how the residents, how the attendings are documenting on the records, and there will be a variety of styles that they use. Some of them group them by the assessment plan. Some of them group them by system. Some of them uh, do it problem by problem. Some of them list all the problems first, and then they list all the plan together. It depends by attending, right? But and you're getting used to the order sets and getting to know where the different things are, how to order IR procedures, how to order a consult, how to order a consult to social worker, to case manager. You're getting to know all that, and you're seeing the steps for admission process that has an order set that is specific for admissions. Uh, on top of that, you have to order specific antibiotics and specific consults, treatments per case. You're also seeing the progress notes that um, the layout is the SOAP note, and it has different areas that may give you or may not give you a hard stop, as there are some parts of the documentation that are mandatory. For example, let's say a SOAP note has not only the subjective part, but it has a mandatory part, which is the review systems, that you have to do it to make this note acceptable as per Medicare guidelines. And then you have a physical exam that has its particular stuff. Then you have the assessment plan part, and so forth. And then comes the discharge summary, that you will see your attendings or residents start by doing the discharge process by reconciling the chronic problems. Pay attention on that, chronic problems, reconciling chronic problems, doing the home medications that the patient is going to start taking from now after the hospitalization, and then entering orders for follow-up. Why? Because these are quality metrics. So these have to be checked out before a patient leaves. And then the last step for discharge is to enter the discharge orders. So all that's simple, that's easy. Anyone can learn that in 2 or 3 days of orientation, which you will get at the beginning of residency. So for programs, it's not a problem that you know in a specific EHR and you know how to do all this, because you're going to get trained on this, you're going to get orientation on this, and if you don't even get it in 3 days, people are going to start teaching you, and this is a repetition thing that you will get it. You will get this part. That's not the issue with EHR. So again, it's not about you knowing all the EHR that are around the United States, like Epic, Cerner, Meditech, or NextGen, or any of them. It's not the process of entering the orders or knowing the order sets which matters. It is the information in there that matters. But I want to explain you this because we're going to elaborate our answer for the EHR question based on this context which is happening in the United States right now. And people hate EHR. Why? Because it gives us a lot of work. Doctors have to document a lot under the premise that administrators tells you this is for the benefit of the patient, this is for you to protect yourself, so you always have to document everything that you're thinking, you have to document any conversation with family members, and you have to document diagnosis to the best extent of accuracy that you can. like the severe sepsis, septic shock, not just saying sepsis, and septic shock due to pneumonia, due to UTI, and why it's important to say due to, because it correlates one problem to the other, and then money revenue bumps up twice as much as it if you were doing the other way around. Why do you think this patient has all these electrolyte imbalances, or list all of them? They even send you notes, or they even send you communication saying, Dr. Munoz, do you think that this patient has hypokalemia based on the potassium of 3.1? Because you forgot to add this diagnosis to your list, they send you a request to validate a diagnosis. Why? Because each of these diagnoses adds points to the mortality risk, adds points to the what's called the case mix index, which basically it's a number that's given to each diagnosis that you list on your assessment plan, and each of these numbers adds up to a big number. So this big number tells you how much is the hospital going to pay. So if your diagnoses are simple and not well taught, then the hospital may get $5,000. But if your diagnoses are very, very specific and convey the severity of the problem that this patient is having, we might be getting $15,000-$17,000 for the same patient. So see, now keep that in mind. There's a lot of work, and they ask us to do a lot of this work all the time. Okay, that's the first part, for you to get to understand why am I giving you this advice on how to answer EHR. I belong to a couple of committees in my hospitals because I like that area, which is documentation improvement, and I belong to a couple of computer system improvement too. So the reason why documentation improvement is a thing, and why EHR is there for us, first, notes were illegible before. You couldn't read a note that was handwritten in a paper chart. You couldn't read those notes. Nor a coder is going to be able to pull out that information to send to bill for a patient's case. So now that you have all these computerized, everything is legible. You can read all the diagnosis. You can even say, why is this surgeon saying that my patient has hypotensive shock when he's not even hypotensive? You can see all these, and now coders, when you do your list, they take each of these diagnoses and they add up, and they also have some training to tell you, hey, I think you're missing sepsis or missing pneumonia here. Do you think it is right? And that is what brings money to the hospital. So the hospital puts that responsibility on every person that comes to work here, like the hospitalist team, the residency teams. Why? Because the problem with residents is that they are out of training. They don't know that encephalopathy bills more than altered mental status, or septic shock bills more than sepsis. And when you ask them, hey, do you think this is septic shock? And they say, well, according to the SOFA criteria, this is Y and Y. I don't think it's septic shock, but the coder says, but all the markers are here, so Medicare will agree that this is septic shock, and it's a common fight. I know that a lot of people are mad right now with EHR because there's a thinking that it is taking us away from our real role of being doctors, of treating patients, and not dealing with the money part. But keep this in mind, and this is what every person in the top positions on residency programs or hospitalist programs, program directors of everything, no one understands is that the hospital has a mission, which is to save lives. To fulfill this mission, the hospital has to pay doctors, supplies, OR time, surgeons. So it has to be paid by something, and that something is money. So if the hospital doesn't have money to fulfill that mission, all these people are going to lose their jobs. And that's the hard truth. Yeah, of course, the administrators make way more money than us, but you as an applicant, you first have to graduate to start that fight. There's a lot of people already fighting the fight of electronic medical records, administrators, and doctors being taken away from patient care time to fulfill administrative roles. That's already happening, but that's not your fight. Your fight is to get in and finish first. So, why is EHR important for hospitals and programs? It's because the ability to document all these problems, the ability to make money. And so, a doctor has to be able to accurately identify problems to create that list that will reflect that a patient is very sick, very severely affected by a disease. And those are the chronic problem list, the new problems list. So you have to understand that the EHR is the way that you're going to communicate with other doctors on terms of the chronic problems. Like you're going to accurately document that the patient has diabetes type 2 with retinopathy, with neuropathy, with nephropathy, and use your time, a lot of time, to enter each of these complications of one problem. It's not enough to just say diabetes type 2 with nephropathy. You have to say everything. Erectile dysfunction, nephropathy, peripheral vascular disease due to diabetes. You have to link every diagnosis to a causative problem, and then your job is done. Once you update and create a list of problems for each patient. So the problem that we have is that not many doctors find this task worth their time, and EHRs are not used to the extent of their potential right now. Why? Because they don't want to spend extra time doing this. There are some systems like the Kaiser system that uses Epic, and then you have to go through all your problem list and describe it accurately, otherwise you are not able to close the chart. And it works for them. And so little hospitals like mine are still in the works. So if the question comes to you, how's your experience with EHR? If I were to answer that question from my perspective now, I will start by saying, well, I got to be exposed to a couple of EHRs during this time in the United States, working in my observership rotations, and I got to see, I got to get used to how to start the admission process, how to use the order sets for admission, and then to add the procedures, the medications that I need on each specific patient. I got to see how to do a progress note and to be efficient by using templates and smart phrases. And I got to see how to complete the discharge process and all the steps to complete the discharge process and get involvement of social workers and case managers to ensure a safe discharge. And I believe that electronic medical records are here to stay, and once interoperability is achieved, the ability that we will have to communicate chronic conditions and to have these patients assess their chronic conditions every time that they come to the hospital will help us to treat our patients better. That's it. That's all you have to say about EHR. I think, I would like to say I don't hold the truth, but I deal with this all the time, that this is the importance of EHR for me in the positions I hold. EHR is your documentation creates these indexes, these case mix index, these mortality risks, and the documentation of chronic conditions, which you can research on your own, which are called the HHC, or hierarchical chronic conditions, or the CC for chronic comorbidities, or MCC for major comorbidities, are big players on documentation in the hospital. So that's why applicants that have any background on clinical documentation improvement are always on the radar of programs you apply to programs that are heavy on documentation improvement. So I do recommend that everyone that can get some time to apply or to do a little course on clinical documentation improvement and have that on your CV will get attention for sure. So guys, good luck, keep studying. We'll post a new video soon. I just have to think of a good topic that you will benefit of. Until next week.